First, we're going to talk about Helsinki in 1952. It was the Summer Olympics. It was the first time the Soviet Union and Israel joined. The US won with 31 gold medals. On the last day of the competition, Soviet Union almost won. It marked 36 years of the Cold War rivalry. Maria Gorakovskaya set a record for most medals won by a woman. In the same year in Oslo were the Winter Olympics. Alan Galetti, youngest at 12 years old. Norway won with 16 gold medals. It was the first time computers were used at the Olympics, quite an accomplishment. Also, nylon was used for the first time for the competitors' costumes. In 1956 in Melbourne, the Summer Olympics were held. The equestrian events were held in Stockholm in June because of the quarantine laws about foreign horses in the nation. Also, the Olympics started in November because that is when summer begins in the southern hemisphere. Liechtenstein, the Netherlands, Spain, and Sweden boycotted the games in protest of the Soviet Union invasion of Hungary. Egypt, Lebanon, and Iraq boycotted because of the Suez Crisis. The People's Republic of China refused to participate because of the participation of the Republic of China, also known as Taiwan. Many nations decided not to join in the Olympics that year. East and West Germany were represented as one nation. The Soviet Union won with 98 medals. At the end of the closing ceremony, all of the nations walked into the stadium together. In the same year, 1956, in Cortina d'Ampezzo, there were the Winter Olympics. The Soviets finally break Canada's gold medal monopoly in ice hockey. Also, Tony Saylor is the first skier to sweep all three alpine events. He was from Austria. Now, thank you for listening. That was Hank with sports and the Olympics. Up next, we have Sue interviewing an average woman from the 50s to show you what life was like for them this past decade.
Thanks, Hank. Thank you, Barbara, very much for coming on the show today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Sue.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your job and your life?
Well, I have a husband and 8 kids, and I'm a seamstress. And, I mean, my husband gets paid pretty well, I get paid pretty well. We live a pretty decent life. We are very well off for people of the middle class, as you would say.
So, that's very interesting. When you were younger, did you want to be anything cool when you grew up?
Well, I always wanted to be a wife and a mother, and I knew that I wasn't really going to get to be anything too cool, as you would say. I mean, I guess you're pretty cool, you get a really cool job, but, I mean, I never really hoped to, I guess, aspire to be something extraordinary. I always knew that since I was a woman, I wasn't really going to have as many options open for me, but I'm happy with what I do now, so.
Do you think that we should fight gender stereotyping?
Well, do I think we should? Yes. But do I think we are? No. We really need to focus on, no, sorry. We really need to think about making men and women equal. But I don't really think too many people have their heart into it, that too many people are really focused on something like that right now. I think we need to focus more on doing that in the future, because right now we're in a really good place. We don't really want to rock the boat too much.
Yes. Thank you very much, Barbara, for coming on the show today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Sue. Anytime.
All right, everyone, that was Mrs. Barbara Gleckett telling you about a day in the life of a woman in the 1950s.
To allow you all a bit of insight on the minds of teenagers these days within the culture and rebellion that emerges past decade, I found
are you talking about?
Elsie?
You! Get over here! Get over here! What were you doing last night?
I was hanging out with my friends, things that you don't have.
You know what? You are turning into a delinquent. You're going to go to juvenile hall. That is juvie. You're going to get arrested from hanging out with all of these beatniks.
Mom, first of all, I'm not doing anything that's illegal, so I'm not gonna go to jail. And second of all, I'm almost an adult. You need to start treating me like one, okay? And third, those beatniks are better people than you'll ever be because they actually care about diversity and they care about people they don't care about race or gender or sexuality. All they care about is whether you're a good person or not, okay, Mom? Like Fats Domino and Little Richard, they're better artists than Elvis Presley will ever be. I mean, Elvis Presley is like the king, so he's like pretty cool. But they're better than Elvis Presley, and nobody cares about them because they're black. Well, you know what? That's totally unfair because people should be judged on their talent, not on the color of their skin or whether they're a woman or a man.
You know what? You can make all of these decisions when you're an actual adult. You are still a teenager. And I don't even understand all of this new teenage stuff that's been going on, okay? But you need to get it together.
Mom, I go to school, I do everything that I'm supposed to, but when I hang out with my friends, it's not cool.
That's
I
because they're
have
a bad
social life.
influence.
I have social life, okay, Mom?
And what are you wearing?
It's the new style. You're wearing something from like the 13th century.
Oh my, I did not know that was recording.
Oh, that's okay, Sue. It makes it easier for us. Now we don't have to do a segment.
Moving on from that fiasco.
Let's talk about how the economy has been.
That's a great idea. The economy has been fantastic these past few years. President Eisenhower has had an amazing economic policy that he has upheld over this past decade. He believed in fiscal responsibility, which means that the government is responsible for the economy as a whole, not just focusing on certain aspects of it. He also relied on private investments and figured that the economy would fix itself, which it did.
I know, right? He also cut the defense budget while increasing other parts of the budget that aided his domestic projects. Some included the highway system, building airports, and increasing social welfare. This helped create more jobs and thus began the middle class.
Wow. Another thing that happened was small businesses started to grow and major corporations started to combine with each other. Jobs became more readily available because the businesses needed both skilled and non-skilled workers to help to work for them. More workers also began to join labor unions, which contributed to their significant paychecks because they could stand up and fight for their rights.
There was also this man by the name of Ray Kroc. You all might have heard of him. He is the founder of McDonald's. He modernized the way that business works by using the assembly line to sell more burgers faster.
What a great guy. In other news, the automobile culture grew greatly over the course of the decade.
Yeah, the sales of cars went from 34 million a year to 79 million. That's more than double.
Wowee. And if you think about it, the automobile culture has had a lot to do with the teenage culture.
Yeah, I know. At least with my daughter, teenagers are allowed their own cars, since the economy is great and everything. I guess that's why they rebel so much, because they're given more freedom than we were. They love drag racing in the streets and hooking up in the backs of cars.
I have some of my own, so I know how you feel, Sue. They feel so entitled because they never had to go through the hardships that we had to with the Depression and the war. But not everything they do with their cars are bad. They also go to drive-in movies and restaurants with their friends.
The automobile culture also significantly impacted the business industries. Hotels and motels became more popular since people can travel more, and grocery stores and strip malls increased in popularity.
Automobile producers in Detroit encouraged Americans to trash their old cars and buy new hot rods. The snazzy new Corvette came out in '57. Oh, and for those of you who don't know, Detroit was a major U.S. automobile city.
I wish I could get my hands on one of those. Anyway, now we should talk about the entertainment world of the 50s. Some exciting stuff happened.
The big three: radio, movies and cinema, and television. But television is a very new and exciting form of entertainment that just recently came out. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's begin this segment by talking about good old-fashioned radio.
Ah, yes, radio. In the early parts of this decade, the radio was very popular. Comedians such as Arthur Askey, Tommy Trinder, and Charlie Chester would talk on the radio while music played in between their acts. The radio broadcasters knew how to appeal to their audiences because they would focus the morning radio towards housewives so that they could be entertained while they got their children ready for school. And they would focus the evening radio towards men by playing sports and live bands to keep them entertained when they got home from work.
Despite such great entertainment, one is never allowed to listen to the radio on Sunday afternoons during lunch. It's a huge no-no. Also, children never really listened to the radio because they were always playing outside, building stuff, or reading. On another note, cinema and movies also played a huge role in the past decade. The industry was affected big time when television was invented because people would much rather stay home and watch TV and spend more time with their family than have to pay to go see a movie. I know I would.
Exactly. Theaters tried everything to keep people coming. They reduced tickets to 69 cents, they introduced new aspects of films such as color and 3D, and Walt Disney even released many new films that appeal to the baby boomers such as Cinderella, Peter Pan, Lady and the Tramp, Sleeping Beauty, and many more.
There was also a new approach to films. Western films included the communism versus capitalism conflict. A new type of film surfaced that focuses on rock and roll to appeal to the teenage culture. Marilyn Monroe starred in many of these films, which is why she is a sex symbol today. James Dean was also in some of these movies and is now a famous icon for teenage rebellion.
Last but not least, drive-in movies became increasingly popular. These movies are very cheap, quick films that are not very good, but give teens the opportunity to hang out.
Hey
I've seen
guys,
one of these
try
movies
out
with my
these
daughter, and I have
new
to tell you,
looks
Linda,
for
they are
parties,
beautiful.
business
Trust me,
errands,
I
and
know,
for
I
just
totally
lounging
myself.
around at home.
Coming up after this,
These
we'll
new
talk more
styles
about
are
television.
great.
Welcome back from that enlightening commercial break. Moving on to the television part of entertainment this decade. Some very famous shows including I Love Lucy, starring Lucille Ball, the Ed Sullivan Show, and many children's shows were created this decade, along with the television itself. The device became very affordable since many people have money to spend. Political leaders became more increasingly popular through the TV. For example, Truman was the first president to be televised. And as we all know, President Eisenhower created powerful blurbs for the TV instead of really long, boring speeches.
Most news nowadays is still on the radio, but there are still some shows, including this one, that portray the news through television. Also, many advertisers are leaving the radio and creating visual commercials for the television. Also, TV dinners were created so that families could make an evening of watching TV together since each household had one set.
Sorry to interrupt you, Sue, but there's breaking news. There have been some reported cases of panty raids and telephone booth stuffing at Penn State. A new trend this past decade within college men have been raiding women's dorms in the middle of the night and stealing all of their underwear. There has been a case at Penn State where none of the girls can find their underwear. That is ridiculous. This is getting out of hand. Also at Penn State, their football team has broken the telephone booth stuffing record, which is now set at 25 people. That's a lot for one small telephone booth, especially football players.
Teens are into some crazy stuff these days. Women wear their boyfriend's Letterman jackets, do drag racing, have sideburns, and chew some weird bubblegum. What is that again?
Oh yeah, they have bubble gum that's shaped like cigarettes. And they also have some black licorice flavored bubble gum. It is revolting.
Tell me about it.
There's some better things than those disgusting bubble gums that have been invented these past 10 years, like credit cards. I mean, it's easier to buy stuff now. Passenger jets, the copy machine, pacemakers, and even the aforementioned Corvette. You know?
Well, folks, that's all we have time for today. See you next time.